The night my white husband chose his powerful CEO over me, he thought I'd disappear into silence like the good, quiet wife I'd always been. What he didn't know was that while he was falling in love with someone else, I was quietly becoming the one person who could destroy everything he'd built his life around. You see, when you're invisible long enough, people forget you're watching and listening and learning exactly where all their weaknesses are hidden. They called me background noise, but background noise hears everything. And sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the most dangerous one of all. What happened next wasn't just revenge. It was poetry in motion. And by the time he realized what I'd done, his keycard was already worthless and his world was completely mine. If you're ready to see how a woman's quiet strength can move mountains, subscribe and tell me where you're watching from, because this story proves that the most devastating victories are won in whispers, not screams. The dinner was getting cold. Again. I stared at the chicken I'd seasoned just the way Evan liked it. Rosemary and thyme, a little garlic. The mashed potatoes were starting to form that skin on top that he always complained about. I'd made his favorite green beans too, the ones with almonds. My phone showed 8:47 p.m. He'd said he'd be home by 7. I picked up my fork and put it back down. The dining room felt too big with just me in it. The chandelier Evan insisted we buy cast shadows across the mahogany table. Everything in this house was what he wanted, what looked good for his career, what impressed his friends. I picked up my phone and scrolled to his name. My thumb hovered over the call button, then I put it down. I wasn't going to be that wife, the one who called and nagged. At 9:15, my phone buzzed. Working late, big presentation tomorrow. Don't wait up. I read it twice. Then I opened the app that showed me where he was. We'd started sharing locations after I got stuck in traffic and he worried. That was back when he worried about me. The little blue dot showed him downtown, not at the office, at some restaurant I'd never heard of. I turned off the phone and looked at my reflection in the dining room window. A 29-year-old black woman sitting alone in a house that never felt like home. My hair was pulled back the way Evan said looked professional. My dress was the blue one he said brought out my eyes. When did I start dressing for him instead of me? I put the food away and went upstairs. The house was quiet, except for the hum of the air conditioner. In our bedroom, I changed into my old college sweatshirt, the soft gray one with the hole near the left shoulder. Evan always said I should throw it away. I curled up on my side of the bed and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow was Monday. I'd go to work and sit at my desk outside the conference room. I'd answer phones and schedule meetings. I'd smile when people walked past. I'd pretend everything was normal, but something was changing. I could feel it in the way Evan looked at me lately. Or rather, the way he didn't look at me. Like I was part of the furniture, something that came with the house. I closed my eyes and tried not to think about where he really was, who he was really with. The notification sound woke me up. I reached for my phone, squinting at the bright screen. 6:23 a.m. Evan's side of the bed was still cold. I had 17 notifications from Instagram. That was weird. I hardly ever posted anything. I sat up and opened the app. My stomach dropped. Someone had tagged me in a photo. Jenny from accounting. The caption said, "Amazing charity gala last night. So proud of our team." In the photo, Evan stood next to a woman in a red dress. His hand rested on the small of her back. They were both smiling, comfortable, like they belonged together. I knew the woman, Claire Holloway, the CEO of our company, tall, blonde, everything I wasn't. I zoomed in on Evan's face. He looked happier than I'd seen him in months. His smile was real. Not the polite one he gave me at breakfast. Not the tired one he wore when he came home late. This was the smile he used to give me. I scrolled through the other photos. Evan and Claire talking by the bar. Evan and Claire laughing at something on her phone. In one picture, she had her hand on his arm. The timestamp said 9:30 p.m., right when he was supposed to be working late. I set the phone face down on the nightstand and stared at the wall. My chest felt tight. Not from surprise. I think I'd known for weeks. Maybe months. This just made it real. The front door opened downstairs. Footsteps on the hardwood. Evan was home. I didn't move. I listened to him in the kitchen, probably getting coffee. Then the footsteps came up the stairs. The bedroom door opened. "Hey, babe. You're awake." I rolled over to look at him. He was still wearing his suit from yesterday. His tie was loose. His hair was messy. "How was work?" I asked. "Long night, but I think the presentation went well." He started unbuttoning his shirt. "Sorry I didn't text more. You know how it is." I watched him move around the room, getting his clothes for the shower, acting normal, like nothing had happened. "Jenny posted some nice pictures from last night," I said quietly. His hand stopped moving. "Oh, yeah. There was this charity thing after. Claire thought the team should make an appearance. It looked nice. It was okay. Boring, mostly." He wouldn't look at me. "I'm going to shower." After the bathroom door closed, I picked up my phone again. I stared at the photo of them together. The way he looked at her. The way she smiled back. I'd been invisible for so long I'd almost forgotten what it felt like to be seen. Evan came out of the shower with a towel around his waist. His hair was still wet. He moved around the room like I wasn't there, getting dressed, checking his phone. The same routine as always. But something was different. He was different. "Naomi." He sat on the edge of the bed. "We need to talk." My heart started beating faster. "Okay." He looked down at his hands. "This isn't working anymore." The words hung in the air between us. I'd been expecting them, but hearing them out loud still felt like a punch. "What isn't working?" I asked, even though I knew. "Us. This marriage. We've grown apart. Have we? Or have you grown toward someone else?" He looked up then. His blue eyes were calm. Too calm. Like he'd practiced this conversation. "Claire and I understand each other," he said. "We're aligned professionally, personally. It's different with her." "Different how?" "She gets my ambitions. She supports my goals. We want the same things. And I don't," I thought. That's what he meant, but wouldn't say. "How long?" I asked. "Does it matter?" "It matters to me." He sighed. "A few months. Nothing physical happened until recently. I didn't plan this, Naomi." But he hadn't stopped it either. "She's sophisticated," he continued. "She moves in the right circles. She can help my career in ways that I can't." "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." He stood up and went to the closet, started pulling out clothes. "I'll stay at the Marriott downtown for now, until we figure out the details." I watched him pack like I was watching a movie. This couldn't be my life. This couldn't be happening to me. "The house is in both our names," he said, folding a shirt. "We'll need to decide what to do about that." "What about us?" I asked. 3 years of marriage. Don't I get a say in this? He stopped packing and looked at me. Really looked at me for the first time in months. "You're a good person, Naomi. You deserve someone who appreciates you. I thought that was you." I thought it was too. He zipped up his suitcase. "But we want different things. You're happy being quiet, staying in the background. That's not the life I want anymore." The words hit me like slaps. Quiet, background. Like being thoughtful was a character flaw. Like not needing attention made me less than. "I never asked you to be quiet," I said. "You never asked me to be anything. That was the problem." He picked up his suitcase and walked to the door. Then he turned back. "I'll send movers for the rest of my things. You can keep whatever you want from the house." And then he was gone. Just like that. 3 years of marriage ended with the sound of the front door closing. I sat on the bed for a long time after his car pulled out of the driveway. The house felt different already. Bigger. Emptier. But also, strangely, more like mine. My phone buzzed with a text from my mom. "Haven't heard from you in a few days. Everything okay?" I stared at the message. How could I explain that my marriage had just ended over breakfast? That my husband left me for his boss? That he thought I was too quiet? Too small for his big ambitions? "Everything's fine," I typed back. "Just busy." It wasn't true, but it wasn't completely false either. I was busy. Busy figuring out how to breathe again. The office felt different when I walked in Monday morning. Or maybe I felt different. Either way, something had changed. I went to my desk outside the conference room. Same chair, same computer, same stack of files to organize. But the whispers started immediately. Sarah from marketing walked by and smiled too wide. "How was your weekend, Naomi?" "Fine, thanks." Good. That's good." She kept walking, but I saw her look back. Then she whispered something to Tom from sales. By lunch, I understood. Everyone knew. Jenny from accounting stopped by my desk. "I hope you don't mind about the photo. I probably should have asked before tagging you." "It's fine," I said. "I just thought, since you weren't there, you might want to see what you missed." Since I wasn't there. Because I wasn't invited. Because I was just the administrative assistant. Just Evan's wife. Not important enough for the charity gala. "Thanks," I said. "It looked like fun." "Oh, it was. Your husband and Claire made such a nice... they represented the company well." She walked away quickly after that, like she'd said too much. The afternoon was worse. People kept looking at me, some with pity, some with curiosity, a few with the kind of excitement people get when they're watching someone else's drama. Janice Moore, the operations manager, avoided eye contact all day. That was the worst part. Janice and I had worked together for 2 years. She was always friendly, always stopped to chat. Today she walked past my desk like I wasn't there. At 5 o'clock, I packed up my things. As I waited for the elevator, I heard voices in the break room. "I feel bad for her," someone said, "but honestly, did she think it would last? She's sweet, but she's not exactly executive wife material. Claire's perfect for him. They make sense together. Poor Naomi, though. This has to be embarrassing." The elevator doors opened and I stepped inside. My face burned. My hand shook as I pressed the button for the parking garage. Executive wife material. What did that even mean? I drove home in silence. The house felt enormous and empty. I stood in the kitchen and looked at the dinner I'd thrown away 3 nights ago. The dinner that was getting cold while Evan was out with Claire. How long had they been talking about me? How long had everyone known? I pulled out my phone and called the one person who would understand. "Mama? Naomi, I was just thinking about you. How's my baby girl?" And that's when I started crying. I drove to my mother's house in my pajamas and a jacket. It was almost 10 at night, but the porch light was on. It was always on when I needed it. Mama opened the door before I could knock. She took one look at my face and pulled me inside. "What happened, baby?" I collapsed on her couch, the same couch where I'd done homework in high school, where I'd told her about getting into college, where I'd cried over boys who didn't deserve my tears. "He left me, Mama." She sat down and pulled me close. She smelled like vanilla and lavender. Like safety. "Who left you?" "Evan. My husband left me, for his boss." I told her everything. The late nights, the charity gala, the conversation this morning, the way everyone at work looked at me. "They all think I'm pathetic," I said. "They all think I should have seen it coming. What do you think? I think I've been invisible for so long, I forgot I was supposed to matter. Mama was quiet for a long time. She rubbed my back like she did when I was little. You know what your grandmother used to tell me? She finally said. What? She used to say that being quiet doesn't make you weak. It makes you dangerous. Because people underestimate you. They think you're not paying attention. But you see everything. I don't feel dangerous. I feel stupid. You're not stupid, baby. You're hurt. There's a difference. She made me tea and we sat on the couch until after midnight. She didn't tell me everything would be okay. She didn't say Evan would come back. She didn't try to fix anything. She just listened. And for the first time in months, I felt heard. You can stay here as long as you want, she said when I finally stopped crying. I should go home. Face this. You don't have to face anything tonight. Tonight, you just need to rest. She made up the guest room with the quilt she'd sewn when I graduated college. The room smelled like home, like the person I used to be before I became someone's wife. I lay in the dark and thought about what came next. Divorce papers, splitting up our things, finding a new place to live. But for the first time since Friday night, I wasn't scared. I was angry. And anger felt better than sadness. Anger felt like something I could use. I woke up to the smell of bacon, and pancakes, and coffee strong enough to wake the dead. You're spoiling me, I said, walking into the kitchen. You need spoiling. Mama set a plate in front of me. Eat. The food tasted like childhood. Like Saturday mornings when my biggest worry was whether my favorite cartoon would be on. I have to go to work, I said. Do you? I need the job, Mama, especially now. I know. I just hate the thought of you walking into that place with everyone staring. Let them stare. I didn't do anything wrong. She smiled. There's my girl. I drove to work in yesterday's clothes, but with my head up. If people were going to stare, I'd give them something to look at. The office was buzzing with Monday morning energy. I went to my desk and started my computer. Checked emails. Organized files. Did my job. Around 10, my phone rang. Naomi Carter, I answered. Naomi, this is Leonard Brooks. I sat up straighter. Leonard Brooks was a name I recognized but had never expected to hear directed at me. He was some kind of investor. Evan mentioned him sometimes. I was wondering if you might have time for lunch today. There's something I'd like to discuss with you. I'm sorry, Mr. Brooks, but I think you might want to speak with someone else. I'm just an administrative assistant. No, he said. I want to speak with you. Are you free at noon? I looked around the office. Jenny was watching me from across the room. Sarah was pretending to read something on her computer. Yes, I said. I'm free. Excellent. Do you know Murphy's Deli on 5th Street? I can find it. I'll see you there. I hung up and stared at the phone. What could Leonard Brooks possibly want with me? The morning crawled by. Every time someone walked past my desk, I wondered if they could hear my heart beating. What if this was about Evan? What if he'd asked this investor to talk to me about the divorce? At 11:45, I grabbed my purse and headed for the elevator. Where are you going? Jenny called out. Lunch, I said. It's early for lunch. I'm meeting someone. The elevator doors closed on her surprised face. Let her wonder. Let them all wonder. Murphy's Deli was crowded and noisy. Perfect for a private conversation. I spotted Leonard Brooks immediately. He was older than I'd expected. Maybe 60. Gray hair, kind eyes, wearing a suit that cost more than my car. He stood when he saw me. Ms. Carter, thank you for coming. Call me Naomi, and I have to admit, I'm confused about why you wanted to meet. All will be explained. Please, sit. Are you hungry? I ordered a sandwich I didn't want. He got coffee. We made small talk about the weather until the food came. "Now then," he said, leaning forward. "I imagine you're wondering why I called." The thought crossed my mind. "I've been watching your work for some time." "My work?" "The logistics you handle, the scheduling, the way you organize information. You're very thorough." I had no idea what he was talking about. "I just answer phones and file papers." "You do much more than that. Do you remember the Henderson deal 2 years ago?" I thought back. Vaguely. There were some scheduling conflicts with the meetings. You rearranged 17 different schedules to make that deal happen. You found ways to get people in the same room who had been avoiding each other for months. Without you, that deal would have fallen apart. I just did my job. You saved the company $3 million, and you have no idea, do you? I stared at him. No. What about the Morrison acquisition? You caught a scheduling error that would have delayed everything by 6 weeks. That was just... I noticed the dates were wrong. You notice everything, Naomi. That's your gift. You see details other people miss. You solve problems before they become problems. I felt like he was talking about someone else, some important person who did meaningful work. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. Leonard smiled. "Because I think it's time you knew your own value, and because I have a proposition for you." He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folder. "How much do you know about the ownership structure of your company?" "Nothing. I mean, I know Claire is the CEO." "She is, but she's not the owner. The company is privately held. There are several investors, including myself. And there's been some restructuring recently." He opened the folder and showed me documents I didn't understand. "What does this have to do with me?" "Everything," he said. "You see, there's a controlling interest in the company that's about to become available. The current owner is looking to sell." My head was spinning. "I still don't understand why you're telling me this." "Because I think you should buy it," I laughed. Actually laughed out loud. "Mr. Brooks, I think you have me confused with someone else. I'm an administrative assistant. I don't have money to buy a cup of coffee, let alone a company." "You don't need your own money, Naomi. You need the right backing, and the right reasons." He leaned back in his chair. "I've been looking for someone to partner with, someone who understands the company from the inside, someone who's been underestimated." "You want me to buy my own company?" "I want you to own your own company. There's a difference." I stared at the documents. Numbers that meant nothing to me. Legal terms I'd never heard. "This is crazy," I said. "Is it? You've been watching that company run for 2 years. You know where the problems are. You know how to fix them. You just never had the power to do it. What about Claire? What about her? She's the CEO. She runs everything. CEOs can be replaced, Naomi. Owners don't have to be." The idea was so big, I couldn't wrap my mind around it. Me, owning a company. Me, having power over people who had been looking at me with pity all week. "Why would you want to help me?" I asked. "Because I think you're the kind of person who would use power well. And because sometimes the best revenge is becoming exactly who people said you could never be." He closed the folder. "Think about it. You don't have to decide today, but the opportunity won't last forever." I walked back to the office in a daze. The same elevator, the same desk, the same people staring at me. But now I saw everything differently. What if I didn't have to sit here and take their pity? What if I didn't have to smile politely while they whispered about my failed marriage? What if I could change everything? That night, I sat in my empty house and read every document Leonard had given me. Most of it was over my head. But the basic idea was simple. Buy the company, become the owner, make my own decisions about who got to stay and who got to go. It should have seemed impossible. It should have felt like a dream. Instead, it felt like the first real choice I'd had in years. The alarm on my phone buzzed at 6. 00 a.m. sharp. I'd been awake for an hour, staring at the ceiling and thinking about Leonard's offer. The papers he'd given me were spread across the coffee table downstairs, numbers and legal words that felt like a foreign language. But the basic message was clear. I could own the company where I'd been invisible for 2 years, where people whispered about my failed marriage, where my husband had fallen in love with someone else. I got dressed carefully. The navy blue dress that made me feel professional, low heels that didn't make noise when I walked. My hair pulled back neat and simple. I looked in the mirror and saw the same person I'd always been. Quiet Naomi. Background Naomi. But maybe that was about to change. The coffee shop near the office was busy with the morning rush. I ordered my usual and stood in line behind people I recognized from work. They talked about weekend plans and complained about Monday meetings, normal conversations, normal lives. Mine didn't feel normal anymore. I was walking toward the office building when I saw him. Evan stood at the main entrance, fumbling with his keycard. He swiped it once. Twice. The red light blinked each time. I stopped walking and watched. He tried the card again, holding it different ways. Still red. He looked confused, then frustrated. A security guard came over. I couldn't hear what they said, but I saw Evan's face change. Surprise. Then anger. The guard was shaking his head, pointing away from the building. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone and called Leonard. Good morning, Naomi. Did you do something to Evan's keycard? I told you there would be some immediate changes once the ownership transferred. It transferred? When? About 6 hours ago. You're now the majority owner of the company, Naomi. Congratulations. I watched as 2 more security guards approached Evan. They weren't rough, but they weren't friendly either. They escorted him away from the entrance. I haven't signed anything yet, I said. You signed the preliminary agreement yesterday, the one at the bottom of the stack. I remembered now. A simple signature page that Leonard said was just to show good faith. You tricked me. I protected you. If you'd had more time to think, you would have talked yourself out of it. Some decisions need to be made quickly. Evan was on his phone now, pacing back and forth on the sidewalk. His face was red. His voice carried even though I couldn't make out words. What happens now? I asked. Now you go to work. Your work. In your building. I hung up and walked toward the entrance. Evan saw me coming. His eyes were wild with confusion and anger. Naomi, thank God. Something's wrong with the system. They won't let me in. I stopped a few feet away from him, close enough to see the panic in his eyes, far enough to feel safe. Maybe it's not the system, I said quietly. What do you mean? I pulled my badge from my purse, the same badge I'd carried for 2 years. I walked to the entrance and swiped it against the reader. Green light. The door unlocked with a soft click. I looked back at Evan. His mouth was open. His face had gone pale. How is that possible? He whispered. Some things change overnight, I said. And I walked into the building. My building. The elevator ride felt longer than usual. I pressed the button for my floor and watched the numbers climb. 2nd floor, 3rd floor, 4th. When the doors opened, everything looked the same. Same gray carpet, same fluorescent lights, same desks arranged in neat rows. But I felt different walking through it, like I was seeing it for the first time. Morning, Naomi. Janice Moore looked up from her computer. Her voice was careful, uncertain. Good morning, Janice. I went to my desk and set down my purse, turned on my computer, checked my email. 17 messages about system updates, new protocols, emergency meetings, and one from Claire Holloway. We need to talk. My office, 9 a.m. I looked at the clock. 8:47 a.m. I'd never been summoned to Claire's office before. In 2 years of working here, we'd barely spoken. I was part of the furniture tour, something that came with the building. At 8:59, I knocked on her door. Come in. Claire's office was everything mine wasn't. Floor-to-ceiling windows, expensive furniture, fresh flowers on a side table, the kind of space that said money and power. She was standing behind her desk, perfectly dressed in a white blazer and black pants. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a style that probably cost more than my weekly salary. "Sit down, Naomi." I chose the chair closest to the door. Old habits. "I suppose you know why you're here," she said. "Actually, I don't." She looked surprised. "You don't know about the ownership change?" "I know some things have changed. I don't know what that means for day-to-day operations." Claire studied my face like she was trying to solve a puzzle. "How long have you known?" "Known what?" "Don't play games with me. How long have you been planning this?" "I'm not sure what you mean." Her perfect composure cracked just a little. "You bought controlling interest in this company. You locked your own husband out of the building. And you want me to believe this just happened overnight?" "Sometimes things do happen overnight." She sat down hard in her chair. For the first time since I'd known her, Claire Holloway looked uncertain. "What do you want?" she asked. "I want to understand how this company works. I want to learn about the business. And then what?" "I don't know yet." She leaned forward. "Look, Naomi, I know you're upset about Evan. I understand why you'd want to hurt him. But this affects more than just your marriage. You're right, it affects everyone who works here. Including me. Yes, including you." We stared at each other across her expensive desk. CEO and administrative assistant. Or former administrative assistant. I wasn't sure what I was anymore. "I'd like to postpone this conversation," I said finally. "Postpone it?" "I need time to understand my new role, to figure out what questions I should be asking." "You can't just postpone a meeting with the CEO." "Actually," I said, standing up, "I think I can." I walked to the door and paused with my hand on the handle. "I'll let you know when I'm ready to talk." I left her sitting there. Mouth open, speechless. It felt better than it should have. The rest of the morning passed in a blur. People kept walking by my desk. Some tried to look casual about it. Others just stared. Around 11, Jenny from accounting stopped by. "So," she said, trying to sound friendly. "Crazy morning, huh?" "How so?" "With Evan getting locked out, and all the meetings getting canceled. Everyone's talking about some big ownership change. People like to talk. Do you know what's going on?" I looked at her. Really looked at her. Jenny who had posted that photo. Jenny who had tagged me so I'd see my husband with another woman. Jenny who had smiled too wide and asked how my weekend was. "I know some things," I said, "but nothing I can discuss." "Oh, okay. I just thought, since you and Evan are married." "We're married. We're getting divorced." "Right. Sorry. I just thought maybe he'd told you something about work stuff." "Evan and I don't talk about work." That was true. We'd never talked about work. I realized now that was part of the problem. He'd never seen me as someone worth sharing important things with. Jenny nodded and walked away. I watched her stop at Sarah's desk. Whisper something. Look back at me. Let them wonder. Let them all wonder. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Evan. They took my company phone. We need to talk." I deleted the message without responding. Another text 5 minutes later. "Naomi, please. I don't understand what's happening. Delete. Whatever you think you're doing. This isn't the answer. Delete. You're making a mistake. You don't know how to run a company." I stared at that one for a long time before deleting it. You don't know how to run a company. Like owning something and running it were the same thing. Like having power meant you had to prove you deserved it. Maybe I didn't know how to run a company. But I knew how to learn. And I knew how to listen. And I knew how to see things other people missed. That had to count for something. I went to lunch alone. Not because I wanted to be alone, but because everyone was treating me like I had some contagious disease. I sat in my car in the parking lot and called my mom. "How's work today, baby?" "Different." "Different how?" I told her about Evan getting locked out, about my meeting with Claire, about the way everyone was looking at me. "You bought your company?" she said when I finished. "I think so. It's complicated. Lord have mercy. My baby girl owns a company. It doesn't feel real yet. How does it feel?" I thought about that. Scary. Exciting. Like I jumped off a cliff and I'm not sure if I can fly. "You can fly, baby. You just never had room to spread your wings before." What if I crash?" "Then you get back up and try again, but you won't crash. You're too smart for that." I don't feel smart. I feel like I'm pretending to be someone I'm not. Or maybe you're finally being someone you always were. After lunch, I went back to my desk and found Janice waiting for me. "Do you have a minute?" she asked. "Of course." She looked around to make sure no one could hear us. Then she leaned closer. "I owe you an apology," she said quietly. "For what?" "For this morning. For the way I acted. I was surprised about the changes. I didn't handle it well." "It's okay." "No, it's not. And there's something else you should know." She glanced around again. "About Evan and Claire. It's been going on for months. Everyone knew. We all felt terrible for you. But no one wanted to be the one to tell you. Why are you telling me now? Because you deserve to know the truth. And because..." She hesitated. "Because some of us are glad you're in charge now instead of her." "Why?" "Claire doesn't see people like us. We're just worker bees to her. You see everyone. You remember everyone's names. You ask about our families. I just try to be friendly. It's more than that. You care about people. That matters." After Janice left, I sat at my desk thinking about what she'd said, about everyone knowing, about months of whispers and pitying looks. I thought about all the times I'd wondered why Evan was working late, all the times I'd made dinner for two and eaten alone, all the times I'd felt like I was disappearing. The anger that had been simmering all week finally started to boil. At 4:00, my phone rang. "Naomi Carter." "It's Leonard. How was your first day as an owner?" "Confusing. That's normal. Would you like to have dinner tonight? I can answer some of your questions." "I'd like that." "Excellent. Do you know the Metropolitan? Downtown." "I'll find it. 7:00. And Naomi? Dress like an owner, not an employee." I hung up and looked at my reflection in my computer screen. Navy blue dress, sensible shoes, hair pulled back tight. I looked exactly like what I was, someone who tried to stay invisible. Maybe it was time to be seen. I left work early and went home to change. Standing in my closet, I looked at 2 years' worth of careful choices, conservative dresses, neutral colors, nothing that would draw attention or make anyone uncomfortable. In the back, I found a black dress I'd bought for a company Christmas party but never worn. Evan had said it was too fancy for my position. I put it on now. It fit perfectly, made me look confident, professional, like someone who belonged in important rooms. I did my hair differently too. Softer, more relaxed. I put on makeup and jewelry I never wore to work. When I looked in the mirror, I saw someone new, or maybe someone old, the person I used to be before I learned to make myself small. The Metropolitan was the kind of restaurant I'd never been to. White tablecloths, waiters in ties, the kind of place where Evan took clients, where I'd never been invited. Leonard was already there when I arrived. He stood up when he saw me and smiled. "You look like an owner," he said. "I feel like I'm playing dress up." "Fake it until you make it. That's half of business." The waiter brought menus with no prices, Leonard ordered wine I'd never heard of. I felt like I was in a movie about someone else's life. "So," Leonard said after the wine came. "Questions?" "All of them." He laughed. "Start with the biggest one. Why me? Really, you could have bought the company yourself, or found someone with actual business experience. Why the administrative assistant with no money and no connections?" Leonard took a sip of wine. "Do you know what I do for a living, Naomi?" "Some kind of investing. I buy companies that are failing and turn them around. I've been doing it for 30 years. And in all that time, I've learned one thing. The best leaders are usually the people who've been watching from the sidelines." "Why?" "Because they see what's really happening. They know where the problems are. They understand how things actually work, not just how they're supposed to work." The waiter brought our food. Something fancy with sauce I couldn't pronounce. "Your company has been bleeding money for 2 years, Leonard continued. "Claire's been making flashy decisions that look good in presentations but don't solve real problems. Evan and his department spend more time on politics than productivity." "How do you know all this?" "Because I've been watching, studying, and because you've been sending me reports without knowing it." "What do you mean?" "Every scheduling change you made, every meeting you reorganized, every time you caught an error or solved a problem, that all went into reports that crossed my desk. You've been showing me how to run that company better for 2 years. I put down my fork. You've been spying on me? I've been evaluating you. There's a difference. For 2 years? For 2 years, and especially for the last 6 months, as your marriage started falling apart. You knew about Evan and Claire? I knew Evan was an ambitious man with flexible morals. I knew Claire was looking for allies, and I knew you were smart enough to figure it out eventually. So you used my divorce to manipulate me into this deal." Leonard set down his wine glass. "I gave you an opportunity to take control of your life. What you do with it is up to you." We ate in silence for a few minutes. I felt angry and grateful and confused all at the same time. "What happens now?" I asked finally. "Now you decide what kind of owner you want to be. You can make changes or keep things the same. You can fire people or promote them. You can run the company or sell it. What would you do?" "I'd clean house, starting at the top." "Meaning Claire?" "Meaning everyone who doesn't respect you. Everyone who treated you like you were invisible. Everyone who knew your husband was cheating and said nothing." "That's a lot of people." "Yes, it is." I thought about Jenny's fake smiles, about people whispering in the break room, about Claire's demand for a meeting, about Evan's text saying I didn't know how to run a company. "What if I'm not ready for that kind of power?" I asked. "What if you are?" I drove home through downtown traffic, thinking about everything Leonard had said. The city looked different from behind the wheel of my car. Smaller, somehow. Like I was seeing it from higher up. My phone buzzed at a red light. Evan again. I talked to a lawyer. What you did might not be legal. You could get in serious trouble. I almost laughed. Even now he was trying to scare me, trying to make me believe I was in over my head. I pulled into my driveway and sat in the car for a minute. The house looked the same as always, but it felt different knowing it was really mine now. Not ours. Mine. Inside, I poured myself a glass of the wine Evan had been saving for a special occasion. It tasted expensive, complex, like something worth waiting for. I spread Leonard's papers across the dining room table again. This time, I read every word. The numbers started to make sense. The legal language became clearer. I owned 60% of a company worth $12 million. I had 37 employees. I had the power to hire and fire, to change policies and set direction. I had the power to decide who got to stay and who got to go. My phone rang. "Mama, how was dinner with your investor friend?" "Eye-opening." "Good eye-opening or bad eye-opening?" "I'm not sure yet." "Well, whatever you decide to do, you know I'm proud of you." "For what?" I haven't done anything yet. You took a chance. You said yes when you could have said no. That takes courage. Or stupidity. Sometimes there's no difference. After we hung up, I went upstairs and changed back into my comfortable clothes. But I left the black dress hanging outside the closet where I could see it. Tomorrow I'd have to decide what kind of owner I wanted to be, what kind of person I wanted to become. But tonight, I was just Naomi, sitting in my house, drinking expensive wine. And for the first time in months, I wasn't waiting for someone else to come home. I was already here. I woke up at 5 a.m. without an alarm. My mind was already racing with questions I didn't know how to answer. What did a company owner do all day? How did you fire a CEO? Was I supposed to have an office now? I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table with Leonard's papers. In the morning light, the numbers looked even bigger. $12 million, 60% ownership, 37 people depending on decisions I'd never made before. My phone had 6 more messages from Evan. I deleted them without reading. At 7, I called Leonard. "You're up early," he said. I couldn't sleep. I have questions. Shoot. Do I need to tell people who I am now? Do I get a new office? Do I have meetings to go to? Leonard chuckled. Slow down. You don't have to change everything today. But I could? You could. The question is whether you should. I looked out my kitchen window at the morning sky. Pink and orange clouds stretched across the horizon. What would you do on day 1? I asked. I'd watch. I'd listen. I'd let people wonder what was coming instead of showing my hand too early. That sounds like something I might actually be good at. It's something you've been doing your whole life. The only difference now is that your watching matters. I got to the office at my usual time. Same parking spot, same elevator, same desk. But everything felt charged with possibility. The whispers started immediately. People huddled in small groups, talking in low voices. When they saw me, conversations stopped. Smiles became forced. Around 9, Claire's assistant came by my desk. "Ms. Holloway would like to reschedule your meeting for this afternoon," she said. "Which meeting?" "The one from yesterday that you postponed." I looked at my computer calendar. Empty, like always. "I'm not available this afternoon," I said. "When would be convenient for you? I'll let her know." The assistant looked confused. "Should I tell her when you might be free?" "Tell her I'll be in touch." After she left, I opened my email and started reading everything differently. Not just the messages sent to me, but the ones copied to me. The meeting notes I'd been filing, the reports I'd been organizing. I'd been handling pieces of information for 2 years without understanding how they fit together. Now I started seeing the bigger picture. Budget overruns in marketing, client complaints about delayed projects, 3 different departments working on the same problem without talking to each other. No wonder Leonard said the company was bleeding money. Around 10, Janice stopped by my desk. "Coffee run," she said. "Want anything?" "Sure, whatever you're getting." "Mind if I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "Are you really... did you actually buy the company?" I looked around to see who was listening. Half the office was pretending to work while straining to hear our conversation. "Some things have changed," I said carefully. "Good changes or bad changes. That depends on your perspective." Janice leaned closer. "For people like us? People who actually do the work around here? I think good changes." She smiled. Really smiled. Not the polite, careful smile everyone had been giving me. "I'll get you the good coffee then. Not the break room stuff." At lunch, I drove to a sandwich shop across town where I wouldn't see anyone from work. I needed space to think without people watching my every move. My phone rang as I was eating. Unknown number. "Hello? Naomi, this is David Chen from Morrison Industries." I recognized the name from some of the files I'd been organizing. A potential client. "Hi, Mr. Chen." I heard about some changes at your company. I wanted to confirm our meeting next week. Meeting. With Claire. About the contract renewal. It's a pretty big deal for us. I grabbed a napkin and started writing down what he was saying. Contract renewal. Next week. Big deal. Can you remind me of the details? I asked. 3-year extension. $2 million annually. We've been working on this for months. $6 million. That was definitely important. Of course. Let me check with Claire about the timing. Great. And congratulations, by the way. For what? On your promotion. It's about time the company recognized your value. After he hung up, I sat in my car staring at the napkin. Promotion. People thought I'd gotten promoted, not that I'd bought the company. Maybe that was better. Let them think what they wanted to think. When I got back to the office, there was a bouquet of flowers on my desk. Expensive ones. The card said, "Congratulations on your new role. The leadership team." I looked around. Jenny was watching from across the room. Sarah was trying to look busy. Tom from sales gave me a thumbs up. They were treating me like I'd won a contest. Like this was something to celebrate instead of something that would change everything for all of us. My computer showed 3 missed calls from Claire. No messages. I opened my desk drawer and found a notebook I'd been using to track project deadlines. I flipped to a clean page and wrote, "Things I need to know. Client contracts, employee salaries, department budgets, outstanding projects. Problem areas." The list filled 2 pages. I'd been here for 2 years, but I realized I only knew my small piece of the puzzle. At 3 o'clock, Claire appeared at my desk. "We need to talk," she said, not asking, demanding. "I'm busy right now. This can't wait." I looked up at her. She was still perfectly dressed, still perfectly controlled, but there were cracks in the facade. Her smile was too tight. Her voice had an edge. "It'll have to wait," I said. "Naomi." She lowered her voice. "I don't know what game you think you're playing, but this affects the entire company. We have clients, deadlines, responsibilities. You're right. We do. So let's figure this out like adults. I'm trying to. That's why I need more time." Time for what? To understand what I'm responsible for now. She stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language. "Fine," she said finally. "But this conversation is happening today. My office. 5 o'clock. She walked away before I could respond. I watched her go, noticing how people moved out of her way in the hallway, how they nodded respectfully when she passed, how they treated her like someone important. Soon they'd be doing that for me, or trying to figure out if they should. At 4:30, I gathered my courage and walked to Claire's office. Her assistant's desk was empty, so I knocked on the door. "Come in." Claire was standing by her window, looking out at the city. She didn't turn around when I entered. "Close the door," she said. I closed it and took the same chair I'd sat in the day before. "I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday," she said, still facing the window. "I think I understand what's happening here. Do you?" She turned around then. Her face was calm, but her eyes were hard. "You're hurt about Evan. I get that. You want to lash out. Make him pay for what he did to you. This isn't about Evan, isn't it? You buy the company right after he leaves you. You lock him out on your first day. You're making him look foolish in front of his colleagues. If he looks foolish, that's his choice." Claire sat down across from me. "Naomi, I'm going to be direct with you. You're in over your head. Owning a company isn't like filing papers or scheduling meetings. There are regulations, legal requirements, financial obligations. You could lose everything if you make the wrong decisions. Then maybe I should learn about those things. Or maybe you should let the people who already know handle the important decisions. People like you, people like me." We looked at each other across her expensive desk. CEO and owner, experience and authority. 2 women who wanted different things. What are you proposing? I asked. Keep your ownership, take your dividends, but let me run the company. Nothing changes day to day. You get financial security, and the company continues to function. And Evan? What about him? Does he get his job back? Claire hesitated. That would be a business decision. Made by who? By me, as CEO. I thought about that. Keep the money but not the power. Stay invisible but get paid for it. It would be easier, safer. I wouldn't have to learn about budgets or client contracts. I wouldn't have to make decisions that affected 37 people's jobs. I need to think about it, I said. Don't think too long. We have the Morrison contract meeting next week. David Chen is expecting answers. I stood up to leave. Naomi, Claire said as I reached the door. Evan made his choice. But this company employs a lot of good people who don't deserve to suffer because of your personal problems. You're right, I said. They don't. I left the office early and drove to my mom's house. I needed to talk to someone who would tell me the truth instead of trying to manage me. You look tired. Baby, she said, letting me in. I feel tired. She made tea and we sat at her kitchen table. I told her about my day, about Claire's offer, about feeling like I was pretending to be someone I wasn't. What do you want to do? She asked. I don't know. Part of me thinks Claire's right. I don't know anything about running a company. And the other part is tired of people telling me what I can't do. Mama nodded. You know what your daddy used to say? What? He used to say that being smart wasn't about knowing everything. It was about knowing what you didn't know and finding people who could teach you. Claire could teach me. Could she? Or would she just do everything herself and expect you to sign the papers? I thought about that. About 2 years of being told to just do my job and not ask questions. About being treated like I couldn't understand anything complicated. There's something else, I said. Claire and Evan, they made fun of me, at work, in front of other people. Mama's face got serious. What kind of making fun? Calling me quiet, background, saying I was happy to stay invisible. And how did that make you feel? Small, like I was wrong for being myself. But you weren't wrong, baby. You were just in the wrong place. She reached across the table and took my hand. Maybe this is your chance to find the right place. I drove home as the sun was setting. The house felt different every time I walked into it now. Less like a place where I'd been waiting for my life to start. More like a place where something new was beginning. I poured myself a glass of wine and called Leonard. How did day 2 go? He asked. Complicated. Claire wants to make a deal. What kind of deal? I told him about her offer. Keep ownership. Give up control. What do you think? I asked. I think Claire's scared. Of what? Of you. Of change. Of losing the power she's used to having. But she's right about one thing. I don't know how to run a company. Neither did she when she started. Neither did I. Neither does anyone before they learn. What if I mess it up? What if you don't? I walked to my window and looked out at my neighborhood. Small houses with neat lawns. People living quiet, ordinary lives. A week ago, that's what I thought I wanted. Leonard. Yeah? If I do this, really do this, I'm going to need help. You'll have it. And if I decide I can't handle it, then you sell your shares and walk away with enough money to start over anywhere you want. It's that simple? The exit strategy is simple. Everything else is work. After we hung up, I sat on my couch with my laptop and started researching. How companies work. What owners actually do. What CEOs are responsible for. I read until after midnight. Articles about leadership, stories about successful women in business, case studies of company turnarounds. Most of it was over my head, but some of it made sense. The basic ideas weren't that complicated. Make good decisions. Treat people fairly. Don't spend more than you earn. Listen to customers. Hire smart people and trust them to do their jobs. I could do those things. Maybe not perfectly, but I could try. My phone buzzed with a text. Evan again. I heard about your meeting with Claire. Please don't do anything you'll regret. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back. I already regret plenty of things. This isn't one of them. Another text came immediately. We can work this out, all of it. The marriage, the job, everything. No, we can't. I made a mistake. People make mistakes. Some mistakes can't be fixed. You're not this person, Naomi. You're not vindictive. I thought about that. Was I being vindictive? Was this whole thing just revenge disguised as business? Maybe partly, but it was more than that now. It was about becoming someone I'd never had the chance to be. Someone who made decisions instead of carrying them out. Someone who was seen instead of invisible. You're right, I texted back. I'm not that person. I'm someone new. Then I blocked his number. The next morning I got to work early, before the whispers, before the stares. Before Claire could corner me for another conversation about what I was too stupid to understand. I sat at my desk with a cup of coffee and made a list of the decisions I needed to make. Keep Claire or find a new CEO. Give Evan his job back or keep him locked out. Learn the business slowly or jump in with both feet. Stay invisible or step into the light. Some of the choices were business decisions. Others were personal. All of them would change who I was and how people saw me. At 8 o'clock, Janice arrived with good coffee and a smile. You look determined today, she said. I feel determined. Good, because half the office is betting you'll crack under pressure. And the other half? The other half is hoping you don't. She walked to her desk, then turned back. For what it's worth, I think you're going to surprise a lot of people. Including myself. Especially yourself. At 9 o'clock sharp, I picked up my phone and called David Chen. Mr. Chen, this is Naomi Carter. We spoke yesterday about the Morrison contract. Of course. Did you coordinate with Claire about the meeting? Actually, I'd like to handle that meeting myself. Pause. Yourself? Yes, I'm taking on more responsibility in the company. I'd like to understand our client relationships better. Well, okay. If you're sure you're prepared for the discussion, I will be. After we hung up, I opened my computer and started a new document. Morrison Industries, contract review. I had 6 days to learn everything I could about our biggest client, about their needs, their history with us, their expectations for the future. 6 days to prove I was more than just an administrative assistant who got lucky. 6 days to decide what kind of owner I was going to be. I started typing. The Morrison Industries file was 3 inches thick. I spread it across my desk like puzzle pieces, trying to understand how all the contracts and emails and meeting notes fit together. David Chen's company had been our client for 5 years. They made parts for construction equipment. We handled their logistics, shipping schedules, inventory management, supplier coordination. It sounded simple, but the details were incredibly complex. And we were failing them. The file was full of complaints, delayed shipments, missing orders, confused communications between departments. David had been patient, but his emails from the last 6 months showed growing frustration. No wonder he wanted to renegotiate. He probably wanted to fire us entirely. Working hard or hardly working. I looked up to see Jenny standing by my desk with a fake smile. Just catching up on some files, I said. That's a big file. Anything interesting? Company business. Her smile faltered. Right, of course. She walked away, and I went back to reading. But I could feel people watching me. wondering what I was doing with client files, whether I had the right to look at them. Did I have the right? I owned the company, but I wasn't sure what that meant day to day. Could I access any file I wanted? Did I need permission from Claire? I picked up my phone and called Leonard. "Question," I said when he answered. "Shoot." "As majority owner, can I look at any company documents I want?" "Any and all. You own those documents. Even if the CEO doesn't want me to. The CEO works for you now, Naomi, not the other way around." That still felt impossible. Claire Holloway working for me, taking direction from me. "Leonard?" "Yeah?" "I think I'm in over my head." "Good." "Good?" Being in over your head means you're growing. If you felt comfortable, you wouldn't be pushing yourself hard enough. I spent my lunch break in the parking lot, calling Morrison Industries competitors, pretending to be a potential client, learning about industry standards and pricing. Our rates were competitive, our services were comprehensive, but our execution was terrible. The problems weren't with what we promised. They were with how we delivered. I made notes on everything I learned. By 2:00, I had a clear picture of where we were failing and what needed to change. Now I had to figure out who was responsible for the failures. I walked through the office differently that afternoon, not hurrying to my desk with my head down, but slowly, observing, listening to conversations, watching how people worked. In the shipping department, I saw confusion. 3 different supervisors giving contradictory instructions. No one seemed to know who was really in charge. In client services, I watched Sarah handle a complaint call. She was polite, but clueless. She promised to look into it, without writing anything down or asking follow-up questions. In accounting, Tom was playing solitaire on his computer, while phones rang unanswered. These were the people handling our biggest client. No wonder David Chen was frustrated. At 4:00, Claire's assistant appeared at my desk again. "Ms. Holloway would like to see you now," she said. "I'm busy." "She says it's urgent." I looked at the files spread across my desk, the notes I'd been making, the problems I was starting to understand. "Tell her I'll be there in 10 minutes. The assistant looked confused. No one made Claire wait 10 minutes, but no one had owned the company before either. When I finally walked into Claire's office, she was pacing behind her desk. "We have a problem," she said, without looking at me. "Just one?" "David Chen called. He says you want to handle the Morrison meeting yourself." "That's correct." "Naomi, this is a $6 million contract. You can't just walk into that meeting unprepared." "Who says I'll be unprepared?" She stopped pacing and stared at me. "You've been an administrative assistant for 2 years. You've never negotiated a contract in your life. Everyone starts somewhere. Not with our biggest client, not with a deal this important." I sat down in the chair across from her desk, the same chair where she'd tried to convince me to stay invisible 2 days ago. "What are you so afraid of?" I asked. "I'm afraid you're going to destroy everything I've built here." "Have you built it? Or have you just been maintaining it?" Her face flushed. "I've grown this company by 40% in 3 years. And you've also let client satisfaction drop by 60%. The number came from my research. I'd calculated it based on complaint letters and renewal rates. Claire's mouth opened and closed. "Where did you get that number?" "From the files, the ones I'm allowed to read because I own them." She sat down hard. "You've been spying on my departments." "I've been learning about my company. Your company." She said it like the words tasted bitter. 6 months ago, you were scheduling my meetings. Now you think you can run everything better than me." "I don't think anything yet. I'm still figuring out what I think." "And until you figure it out, what? Everything stops?" "Everything continues. But under new management." "Whose management? Yours? Mine?" We stared at each other across her desk. For the first time since I'd known her, Claire looked uncertain, vulnerable even. I've worked my entire career to get where I am, she said quietly. I know. I won't let you destroy that. I'm not trying to destroy anything. I'm trying to fix what's broken. And you think I'm what's broken? I thought about that question. About Claire's expensive clothes and perfect presentations. About her relationship with Evan and the way she'd laughed at me behind my back. I think you've forgotten that companies exist to serve clients, not CEOs. I left Claire's office and went straight to the shipping department. The supervisor, Marcus, looked surprised to see me. Ms. Carter, is everything okay? I'm trying to understand how our shipping process works. Do you have a few minutes? Sure. But shouldn't you be talking to Claire about this stuff? I'm talking to you. He walked me through the system. It was more complicated than it needed to be. Orders came from 3 different sources. Priority levels kept changing. No one had a complete picture of what was supposed to ship when. It's frustrating, Marcus admitted. We want to do good work, but we're always getting conflicting instructions. From who? Claire wants everything rushed. Evan wants everything documented. The client services team makes promises we can't keep. What would make your job easier? He looked surprised by the question. Honestly, one person making decisions about priorities, and maybe a computer system that actually works. I spent an hour in shipping, then an hour in client services, then an hour in accounting, asking questions, listening to complaints, understanding how the company really worked versus how it was supposed to work. By 6 o'clock, I had a clear picture of the problems and some ideas about solutions. I stayed late that night, alone in the empty office. I sat at my desk and made lists. Problems. No clear chain of command, outdated computer systems, conflicting priorities from management, poor communication between departments, promises to clients that couldn't be kept, solutions. Simplify decision-making process, invest in better technology, create clear roles and responsibilities, regular communication meetings, under-promise and over-deliver. It wasn't rocket science, but implementing the solutions would mean changing how everyone worked. And change was never easy. My phone rang. Leonard. You're working late, he said, learning late. What did you learn? That our problems aren't mysterious. They're just ignored. Good insight. What are you going to do about it? I'm going to fix them. Starting with the Morrison meeting. If I can prove I understand our biggest clients' needs, maybe people will start listening to my ideas about everything else. And if you can't prove it, then I'll probably lose our biggest client and confirm everyone's opinion that I'm in over my head. Leonard chuckled. No pressure then. None at all. The weekend passed in a blur of research and preparation. I read everything I could find about Morrison Industries, their company history, their competitors, their challenges and opportunities. I called other logistics companies and asked questions about industry best practices. I researched software solutions that could solve our communication problems. By Sunday night, I felt ready. Not confident, but prepared. Monday morning, I got to the office early and found Claire waiting by my desk. We need to discuss the Morrison meeting, she said. It's handled. Naomi, please, let me help you with this. I know David Chen. I know what he expects. What does he expect? Professional presentation, detailed analysis, concrete solutions to his problems. Then that's what he'll get. From you? From me. She studied my face like she was trying to solve a puzzle. You're really going to do this? I'm really going to do this. Then I want to be there, as backup. No. This is something I need to do alone. Why? Because if I can't handle one client meeting, I have no business owning this company. David Chen arrived at 11 o'clock. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, dressed casually but expensively. He had the confident manner of someone used to being important. I met him in the lobby and walked him to the conference room, the same room where I'd organized meetings for 2 years, where I'd served coffee and taken notes while other people made decisions. Today I sat at the head of the table. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Chen. Call me David, and I have to admit, I'm curious about this new arrangement." "New arrangement?" "Claire mentioned you've taken on additional responsibilities." "I have." "Good, because frankly, we've been having some issues with service quality." I opened the folder I'd prepared. "I know. I've reviewed all your complaints from the last year." His eyebrows went up. "All of them?" "All of them. And I think I understand what's been going wrong." For the next hour, I walked him through our analysis, the communication problems, the technology gaps, the unclear priorities that led to delayed shipments. "The good news," I said, "is that these are all fixable problems." "How?" I showed him the solutions I'd researched, new software that would give him real-time tracking, simplified communication protocols, dedicated account management. "This sounds expensive," he said. "Less expensive than losing clients." He smiled. "Fair point. What's your timeline for implementing these changes?" 90 days for the technology upgrades, 30 days for the process improvements." "And who's going to manage this transition?" "I am." "You personally?" "Me personally." David leaned back in his chair. "I have to ask, where were these solutions 6 months ago, a year ago?" "They were sitting in filing cabinets and complaint letters. No one was looking at the big picture." "And now someone is?" "Now someone is." He thought for a moment. "Okay, I'm willing to give this a try, but I want monthly progress reports. And if things don't improve dramatically, we're going to reconsider this relationship." "Fair enough." We shook hands. $6 million in annual revenue. Secured. After David left, I sat alone in the conference room for a few minutes. I'd done it. Handled my first major client meeting. Kept our biggest contract. But more than that, I'd proven something to myself. I could learn. I could understand complex problems. I could come up with solutions. Maybe I really could do this job. When I walked back to my desk, the office was buzzing with whispered conversations. Word had spread quickly that David Chen seemed happy when he left. Claire was waiting for me. "How did it go?" she asked. "We kept the contract." Relief flooded her face. "Thank God. What did you promise him?" "Better service, better communication, better results." "How are we going to deliver that?" "We're going to change how we work." "What kind of changes?" I looked around the office. At Jenny pretending to work while listening to our conversation. At Sarah updating her Facebook page. At Tom playing computer games instead of answering phones. "Big changes," I said. That afternoon, I called a meeting. Not just the management team. Everyone. All 37 employees in the conference room at 3 o'clock. People filed in looking confused, worried, like they were about to be laid off. I stood at the front of the room where Claire usually stood, where important people gave important speeches. "Thank you all for coming," I said. "I know there's been a lot of confusion lately about changes in company ownership. I wanted to address that directly." Silence. 37 pairs of eyes staring at me. 2 weeks ago, I was the administrative assistant. Today, I'm the majority owner of this company. Murmurs. Surprised faces. A few people looked at each other like they wondered if this was a joke. I know this is unusual. I know some of you have questions about my qualifications. Those are fair questions. Jenny was frowning. Sarah looked confused. Marcus from shipping was nodding slowly. "What I can tell you is that I've spent 2 years watching this company work, watching all of you work, and I've seen incredible talent being wasted by poor systems and unclear communication." More nods. People were starting to look interested instead of just worried. "So we're going to make some changes. not to punish anyone or prove anything, but to make this a better place to work and a better company to do business with. I outlined the problems I'd identified, the solutions I wanted to implement, the timeline for improvements. These changes will require everyone to learn new systems and new processes. It won't always be easy, but I believe we can build something better here. A hand went up. Tom from accounting. What happens to people who don't want to change? That's their choice, but this company is moving forward, with or without people who prefer the old way of doing things. Another hand. Janice. What about Claire? Is she staying as CEO? I looked toward the back of the room where Claire stood. Her face was pale but composed. Claire and I will be discussing her role in the coming days, I said. And Evan? Someone called out. Evan no longer works here. Silence, then whispers. Everyone had known about Evan and Claire. Now they were processing what that meant for the power structure they'd known for years. Any other questions? Marcus raised his hand. When do these changes start? They already have. After the meeting, people filed out slowly. Some looked excited. Others worried. A few seemed angry. Claire lingered until the room was empty, except for us. That was well done, she said. Thank you. You didn't mention my relationship with Evan. That's not company business, isn't it? You fired him because he left you for me. I thought about that. I didn't fire Evan because he left me. I fired him because he didn't respect this company or the people in it, including me. And me? Do I not respect the company? You tell me. She was quiet for a long moment. I've made mistakes. We all have. What happens now? Now you decide what kind of employee you want to be. Employee? You're not the CEO anymore, Claire. You work for me now. Her face went through several emotions. Surprise, anger, something that might have been respect. What would my role be? That depends on what you're good at and what the company needs. And if I don't want to work for you, then you're free to leave. She nodded slowly. I need some time to think about it. Take all the time you need. After she left, I sat alone in the empty conference room, the same room where I'd listened to other people make decisions for 2 years. Today, I'd made my own decisions. Big ones that would affect everyone who worked here. It felt terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. I worked late again that night, planning the changes I'd promised. New software systems, clearer job descriptions, better communication processes. Around 8 o'clock, my phone rang. Mama, how was your big meeting today? Which one? The one with your biggest client. Good, we kept their business. And how was your other big meeting? How did you know about that? She laughed. Baby, when you own a company and call an all-hands meeting, word gets around. Small world. It went well too, I think. You think? I told everyone things were going to change. Not everyone looked happy about it. Change is hard, but sometimes it's necessary. Was I right to do this, Mama? To turn everything upside down? Were things working the way they were? No. Then you were right. What if I mess it up? What if you don't? After we hung up, I stayed in the office until after 10. The building was quiet. Just me and the security guards and the hum of computers. I walked through the empty departments, imagining how they'd look in 90 days. New systems, new processes, new energy. It was possible. All of it was possible. The next morning, I found an envelope on my desk. My name written in Claire's handwriting. Inside was a letter of resignation. 2 weeks' notice. Professional, but cold. She was choosing to leave rather than work for me. Part of me felt relieved. It would be easier to implement changes without her resistance. But part of me felt sad too. Despite everything, Claire was smart and experienced. The company would lose something valuable when she left. I was reading the letter when Janice appeared at my desk. Is it true? She asked. Is Claire really leaving? It looks that way. Good. I looked up, surprised. Good? She never listened to people like us, never cared about our ideas or problems. Maybe now things will actually get better. I hope so. They will. You'll make sure of it. Her confidence in me was both encouraging and terrifying. 37 people were counting on me to make the right decisions. To turn things around, to build something better. No pressure at all. 2 weeks later, Claire cleaned out her office. I watched from my desk as she packed boxes and loaded them into her car. She didn't say goodbye to anyone. Just walked out the front door like she was leaving for lunch. That afternoon, I moved into the CEO office. The same office where she'd tried to convince me to stay invisible. Where she'd dismissed my questions and underestimated my abilities. I sat behind the big desk and looked out the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city spread out below me looked smaller than before. More manageable. My phone rang. Leonard. How does it feel? He asked. What? Sitting in the CEO chair. How did you know? Good investors keep track of their investments. I looked around the office, the expensive furniture, the fresh flowers, the view that said money and power. It feels like someone else's life, I said. It is someone else's life. It's your new life. What if I'm not ready for it? Then you'll get ready, one decision at a time. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and started working on the technology upgrades I'd promised David Chen. The software implementations, the process improvements, one decision at a time, one change at a time, one day at a time. 6 months later, I stood in the conference room presenting quarterly results to our board of directors. Leonard was there, along with 2 other investors. Revenue was up 18%. Client satisfaction had improved dramatically. Employee turnover was at an all-time low. Impressive turnaround, said one of the board members. What's your secret? No secret, I said. Just listening to the people who actually do the work. After the meeting, I walked through the office, the same departments I'd observed as an administrative assistant. But everything was different now. New computers hummed quietly. Phones were answered promptly. People worked with focus and energy. Marcus from shipping waved as I passed. The Morrison delivery went out early today, he called. Excellent. Feels good to beat our promises instead of missing them. In client services, Sarah was handling a call with confidence and competence. She had a new title now, senior account manager, and new responsibilities that matched her potential. Even Tom in accounting seemed engaged. He'd turned out to be brilliant with numbers once he had systems that actually worked. I was reviewing contracts in my office when my assistant knocked. Yes, I had an assistant now. Patricia, a sharp woman in her 50s who kept me organized and informed. There's someone here to see you, she said. Who? Evan Whitmore. My heart skipped. I hadn't seen or spoken to him since the day I blocked his number 6 months ago. Did he say what he wants? He says it's personal. I thought about it. I could have Patricia send him away. Tell him I was too busy. Avoid the conversation entirely. But I was curious. What could he possibly want to say to me now? Send him in. Evan looked different when he walked into my office. Thinner, older. His confidence was gone, replaced by something that might have been humility. Hello, Naomi? Evan. He looked around the office, at my desk, at the windows, at the company name on the wall. This is surreal, he said. What can I do for you? I wanted to apologize for everything. Okay. And I wanted to ask, is there any chance I could have my job back? I almost laughed. You want your job back? Things haven't worked out the way I expected. Claire and it didn't last. And finding new work has been harder than I thought. What makes you think I'd hire you? We were married for 3 years. That has to count for something. It counts for me knowing exactly who you are. He winced. I know I hurt you. I know I made terrible choices, but I'm asking for a second chance. I studied his face. The same blue eyes that had once made me feel special. The same smile that had convinced me I was lucky to be chosen by him. Do you know why I fired you, Evan? Because I left you for Claire. No, I fired you because you made fun of me at work, because you laughed when people called me quiet and invisible, because you treated your wife like she was an embarrassment. His face reddened. I didn't mean. Yes, you did mean it. You thought I was too small for your big ambitions, too quiet for your important life. I was wrong. Yes, you were. We sat in silence for a moment. CEO and job applicant, wife and ex-husband. Two people who used to share a life, and now shared nothing but history. I'm not the same person I was 6 months ago, he said finally. Neither am I. So, what do you say? Can you give me another chance? I looked at him sitting across from my desk, in the same chair where clients now asked for my approval instead of dismissing my ideas. No, I said. No. You can't have your job back. You can't have me back. You made your choices, and now you get to live with them. Naomi, please, I need this. That's not my problem anymore. He stood up, anger flashing in his eyes. You know this whole thing is just revenge, right? You bought this company to hurt me. I bought this company to save it. The fact that it hurt you was just a bonus. You're being cruel. I'm being honest. Something you never learned how to do. He walked to the door, then turned back. You think you've won something, but you're still the same quiet little woman you always were, just with more money now. I smiled. You're wrong about that, too. After he left, I sat in my office and thought about the conversation. About the man I'd once loved, about the person I used to be. He was right about one thing. I was still quiet. But I'd learned the difference between being quiet and being invisible. Quiet was a choice. Invisible was what other people tried to make me. That evening, I drove to my mother's house for dinner. We sat on her back porch watching the sunset and talking about everything and nothing. You look happy, she said. I am happy. Good. You deserve to be. Do I? Baby, you've worked harder in the last 6 months than most people work in a lifetime. You've changed lives, starting with your own. It's been scary. The best things usually are. As I drove home, I thought about everything that had changed. The company, the employees, my relationship with myself. But some things hadn't changed. I still lived in the same house, still drove the same car, still called my mother every day. Success hadn't transformed me into someone else. It had just given me space to become who I'd always been underneath. The next morning, I got to work early as usual. The office was quiet, just the way I liked it. A few minutes to think before the day got busy. I made coffee and sat at my desk reading emails. Updates from department heads. Questions from clients, reports from our new software systems, normal business, the kind of problems I'd learned to solve. Around 8, people started arriving, morning greetings, updates on projects, the comfortable rhythm of work that mattered. Patricia brought me my calendar for the day. 3 client meetings, a conference call with potential investors, lunch with Leonard to discuss expansion opportunities, a full day. A good day. At 9 o'clock, I looked out my office window and saw a familiar figure on the sidewalk across the street. Evan, standing under a tree, looking up at the building. Watching. He'd been there twice last week, too. Just standing. Observing. Like he was trying to understand something he couldn't quite grasp. I watched him for a few minutes, then turned back to my computer. I had work to do. Important work. Work that mattered to real people. Some mornings, He still sees me happy without him. But most mornings, I don't think about him at all. I think about shipping schedules and client presentations, about employee development and quarterly projections, about building something that lasts, about the quiet satisfaction of work well done, about the power of being underestimated, about the difference between winning and simply refusing to lose. Some victories don't need to be announced. They just need to be lived. Every morning, I walk into my building with my head up. I take the elevator to my office with the windows that show the whole city. I make decisions that matter and solve problems that need solving. I am no longer invisible. And that, it turns out, is revenge enough. The end.